Alrighty. Let me kick things off here. Bear with me. I'm going to share the slides and then we'll dive in. I know folks are just joining, so we're right at the top of the hour. But get here. There we go. Get all situated. How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing good. Yeah, excited to be here with you today, talking about this. It's very top of mind for everyone in marketing.
Yeah, it is. We actually were just, as we were coming into this, just talking about the interest level has definitely spiked more so than we've seen in the past. So I think things are kind of leveling off as far as where AI fits into the whole mold of things, and we'd love to dive into that. Give folks a couple more minutes, but as we're waiting for people to join as well, just kind of the overall topic is talking about the modern marketing team now that we are fully in the AI era. Sort of what are the various skills that we're seeing bubble up as opposed to, pre-AI, if there's, the more formalized version of that. Where does it fit into the workflow? Just sort of the different advantages that do come with utilizing AI versus, other scenarios where folks are looking at headcount and pulling things back and budget and such. So with that, I mean, we're a minute past. Close enough. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Stephen Banbury. Thrilled to have you as our guest. Head of marketing. We've actually worked together, gosh, what's it been? 10 years off and on over the
Yeah,
last 10 years.
sounds right.
Yeah, different companies and is currently now heading up marketing at Clearly Rated. So I'll leave you to kind of give the rest of your intro there because I'm sure I won't do it justice.
No, no, it's fine. I'm just going to repeat what you have here.
Sure.
Uh, what I would say is that picture of me that we have is actually not AI generated. That is a human design picture.
Love
Just in case people are thinking, well, here you go, AI is everywhere. I lead the marketing function at a company called Clearly Rated. We are a client experience, a CX management platform. We serve professional services firms, so in AEC, architecture, engineering, construction, staffing, accounting, legal, and many others. And of course, I have a podcast called the CX Catalyst. So if you're interested in client experience, and go check us out on the usual platforms. But delighted to be here with you, Courtney.
I love the podcast bit. I didn't actually realize you have that. Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, where do we find it? Where like is it a live podcast? Give me more info.
Yeah, no, well, we have live people on it. It's we
Not
don't
a
have AI
not a
agents. Yeah, I basically I'm interviewing CX experts within accounting and or consultants or just people that spend their life looking to improve experiences of customers and clients, different to customer service and customer success.
Mhm.
It's YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts is where you'll find us. So.
All of them.
Yeah, having a lot of fun with it.
That's cool. Very cool. I'll have to check it out. Awesome. Well, let's dive in. Just kind of recap. We're going to go over the how AI is reshaping the marketing team, and sort of what are the various forces behind that. What does that actually look like? The modern team, as we're calling it, and then of course the skills that matter. So we are finding that when you're looking to hire folks, there's a specific skill set that is bubbling up and becoming more important. Where does AI actually fit into your day to day? Where does it fit into the org? I think that one's definitely a valuable piece to dive in on. And then, of course, how do you actually make this practical and implement it today or in this quarter, ideally? So, with that, let's talk about the reshaping of the actual marketing team. Over to you.
Yeah, so I read there's a report out by McKinsey and Company, and it's called The State of the Organization for this year. And McKinsey talks about three what they call tectonic forces that are reshaping organizations: economic disruption, workforce shifts, and technology disruption, which of course is AI. So, when I think about AI era today, obviously you can read the slide, but, output is definitely easier. Creating more impact is, down to humans and being collaborative. When everything ladders up, when AI ladders up to your business strategy and outcomes, then it's going to be way more impactful. Um, the old org chart, and we'll get into that, and we'll show a couple of those, is a little slow compared to organizations that were embracing and utilizing AI in the workflows and their daily practice. Um, and it's really the team still. I think there's a lot of discussion around, how AI agents can be replacing humans, but actually it's the team often today that's really differentiating when you think about that human connection is actually more important. The way that humans have taste, in a way that, as we know, AI doesn't always have. So
Yeah.
maybe we could go on to that next slide
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
where we
So
talk about, yeah,
let me
what
come
teams
on.
get wrong. There
Sorry,
we go.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Perfect. So the to work well, AI needs to be much more than just a plug and play tool. AI agents, AI and human employees, they really need to like collaborate together. And so I think there was a thought that you would hire an AI engineer or an AI, prompt expert. But that's actually not particularly the smart thing to do. And then we talk about confusing, well, more content with better marketing. So I don't think there's anyone here today that hasn't heard of the word AI slop. And in fact, I didn't realize this until recently, but the Merriam-Webster dictionary, their word of the year in 2025 was slop.
Oh,
So
wow.
that just tells you how ubiquitous that is. And in fact, there's an article in the New York Times just a few days ago where they talk about Spotify, LinkedIn, and others really trying to dig out what they call the digital sewage of low quality content. So, making sure that, there's propensity to have like more human involved content. It doesn't mean you can't be using AI, but not just purely AI content that's being put out there in the wild. It's important. And then another mistake I think people do is they treat it as either humans doing that or it's automated and there's no middle ground. And I think that's a bit of a mistake when you really look at the work to be done and the outcomes that you're trying to drive to.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. All great points. I mean, the either or piece is very eye-opening because it's not an either or. With AI tools the way that they are, of course, we're implementing them, but I do see them much more as something that we leverage as opposed to just give ownership to. Great point. I want to encourage everybody to put in questions into the chat, and we'll be sure to dive in on those. I just love this bit because I did see this sort of surface over the last 6 months and actually earlier, like probably in January of this year. So I guess at this point, it's almost 8 months ago. Um, but essentially, the context around this is I was being told to take a team of 24 marketers and then sort of flatline it to these key roles. The growth engineering would be a headcount, and the marketing strategy is a headcount, and so on. So there would basically be a marketing team of five with the head of marketing or the VP. And then underneath this is really the idea was to build out agents and have all of these different uh, areas owned by an AI agent with the actual human at the top, kind of orchestrating and overseeing the success of that. This idea 8 months ago had a lot of eyeballs and it was circulating through, a lot of different orgs and different companies that I spoke with. It has since shifted and that the pendulum has kind of come back. And so with that said, let's maybe talk through what the actual modern team looks like. Uh, Over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the org chart that you showed is feels a little dystopian.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair
But
enough.
there are certainly areas as we look into this that you can outsource to AI, right? So when I think about this slide, it I mean AI has obviously impacted this, but I actually feel like this is how marketers should be thinking about their organizations regardless of AI, honestly.
Mm,
Um, you know, when I think about the team that we have is, what are the outcomes that we're driving to?
mhm,
So what is the quality versus the quantity of output? And that could be like the assets that we're doing. So are we being good gatekeepers? Are we being good brand stewards of the content that we're putting out? And although I'm obviously still interested in generating leads and MQLs, actually what the KPIs that we have, the OKRs for the team are really around SQL, so opportunity and pipeline. So, that's definitely a shift, um, but something that we've always been very focused on. Um, and then, you know, the some of the kind of day-to-day, very kind of like manual aspects of what we're doing, they can be automated. So like the integration of some of whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or others into some of the systems that we have and the tools that we use are allowing us to update, create all sorts of like new wonderful things much more effectively. And we can talk about the gating of that, but certainly, you know, there's a creation of more of an end-to-end responsibility for the outcomes that we're driving. Whereas we could be having like multiple different people. So this is a lot around like having a proper like a DACY or a RACY model too. But
Mhm.
definitely having clear ownership around each of the outcomes is super important.
I've got a question here. Let me actually go backwards. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's geared toward you, Stephen. Have
Hmm.
you ever downsized your org as a result of AI? So
Hmm.
this came from there.
It's a really good question. No is the very simple answer to that. However, um, the two things I'll say, one is I have not hired because of AI. So when I thought about the role that I was thinking about hiring for, I thought about, do I need a person for that, or can that activity be done by or through AI utilizing that? And so I've actually, not expanded my team and got new headcount because I'm able to use these tools to make that team more efficient.
Sure.
The other thing I would say is, we we have natural attrition like all teams, like all companies. And so when we brought new people in, it's really important. They don't need to be necessarily AI native, but they need to be practicing adept at using these tools and something that they've been using every day. Because that just brings in new smarts into the organization, more efficiency. But no, never let anyone go because of it. But certainly have been much more thoughtful about new hiring or
Sure.
actually adding to the organization as well.
Sure. We've seen that as well. Folks have stalled on their hiring. I do think that's come back now and we're seeing a bit of a hiring burst now, or that's picking up. But we even ourselves looked at having an AI operator, thinking that that person could just guide all things AI. I think there's a bit of a course correction on that. So this is what we're actually seeing, and then maybe you can talk through this, having your team as well, how you lay it out.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously like different functions within marketing. These are some of them, and I'm really thinking, what are the outcomes? What are these functions actually producing?
Sure.
And versus like, oh, I need headcount to. It's not so much like the title and name, right? It's more like what is the activity that's being driven, right? And that's where you can see the gaps. Like, do I need a new person? Can I be more efficient? Can I outsource that? Um, you know, you know, I always think about, do I do that inside, or do I outsource that, right, for an agency or something, which is always a good thing to do. So the head of growth marketing, brand strategy, events. I mean, obviously something like events is very physical. Like we run these CX boot camps, which are like hands-on workshops for like 30 to 40 people. I'm not outsourcing any of that, right? That is like human to human, very
Mm,
important. But other parts of this, we're definitely, I mean, I think at the bottom of this, we have like revenue operations. So for me specifically, that's marketing operations. And we're using AI tools across all of these different verticals, whether that's growth, brand, outreach, for example. Uh,
mm.
AI is playing an important part. So instead of adding it into each box, we can just run that along as just like something people are using like every single day for some aspect of what they're doing.
Right. I think that's a big takeaway. It's the underlying sort of platforms and foundation that then support each of these various work streams. And with that, I mean, that's kind of where the skills, the human skills versus the
Mhm.
AI tools, and which one for what and who for what, plays a big part of this conversation. I will say for us, I'm always encouraging folks just start using AI, and that's last year about this time just use GPT, use Claude, use Perplexity. I mean, dive in and then you'll get more comfortable. And fast forward now, there's certain ones I use for certain things, but I don't lock myself into that because of how fast the changes are and how the releases are they're all catching up with each other in different ways. So anyways, it's certainly a fun time. Um, but around the skills and with the human pieces versus the human elements versus the AI elements, we are seeing there's certain areas that are bubbling up. And is this was this me to talk to? No, this is over to you, Stephen. Go ahead and
Yeah, yeah.
give it a
Well, you
whirl.
can talk. You can talk to it as well. I mean, this is a kind of a bit of an old quote, but an organization called the AI Marketing Institute, they kind of rebranded and been super successful. They still run a podcast, and they said that AI isn't going to replace marketing, but
Mhm.
marketers that aren't using AI will be replaced by those that do.
Sure.
And you can
100%.
insert that into pretty much every function, right? Across the board, whether that's sales or ops or whatever. So, but in terms of like the impact, AI delivers value where it's clearly linked to strategic goals and business outcomes. We've kind of said that. And so rising in value is the strategic thinking,
Hmm.
editorial judgment, taste, right? That's something that, in the world of design and branding, for example, you can certainly iterate quickly, but you really need a human hand at the tiller, right? I watched The Odyssey the other day, so I've got sort of like the boat and steering the steering the ship in my mind. So sorry for the
Right.
nautical analogy, but the data interpretation, certainly AI is very important. You can bubble up themes, do sentiment analysis very quickly because you can get through that data, but the interpretation and actually judgment around that and then what you do with it is super important. And then actually orchestrating across an organization so that you're all on the same page is very much human forward.
Hmm.
When I think about, you know, an example of ourselves, if we are, we have, we have a state of the industry report that we put out. We do one around buyers insights, for example. So we have a designer who is designing the template. We have a writer who's doing the analysis with the data analytics team and writing that piece. But we can then, once we have that, we can then repeat it very easily by using AI because we have the template, because we have the words to generate that report. But then you just don't put it back in the wild again. You actually have to have a human. You need the writer to make sure it's all written properly, the designer that it's all like designed properly before you put it out. So, that's working in conjunction with AI. Positioning, messaging, um, com customer empathy. Um, I sort of thought about this, Carney, where is it rising in value or holding steady? And when I think about this, I might put it in rising in value more, just because I think that with the AI agents, that human connection is more important than ever.
Right.
And
Right.
so, creating experiences human to human versus synthetic is actually maybe holding steady now, but I think it's going to increase in value more and more and more and more, honestly.
Right.
And then,
Right.
of course, I don't know if the commoditization of some of the skills, right? So, the team, how they're actually pulling reports, pulling data, how they're integrating workflows, whether it's with Webflow or HubSpot or other tools, basic design, as we say here. Yeah, these are things that are like perfect use cases for AI
Right.
to be doing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of takeaways there. The human element, is becoming more and more important. And of course, AI cannot do that. They can't bring judgment to the table. They can give an out, you'll get the data around it, but you're not going to actually get the human judgment. You're not going to get that empathy. You're not going to get the one-to-one relationship. Or to your point, AI can't taste the food, so it can give
Absolutely.
the ratings.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've I hadn't thought about that. And as any great chef will tell you, and I've seen Gordon Ramsay say this a lot, did you taste the food before you put it out for service? So
right.
absolutely
Yeah.
have to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm a huge fan of Gordon Ramsay. Um, well, then, so where does it actually fit in, and how can it be implemented to the best way? Where does it not fit in? I think this one's pretty straightforward, but it's great to see it kind of laid out. So maybe you can
Mm.
walk us through this.
Yeah, it goes a little bit to sort of the example I gave around kind of like a piece of content, for example, and the design of that and the ideation around that. Um, that you kind of you're augmenting the human with their AI, but
Mhm.
you need to be very thoughtful about which pieces. You need to look at your own company and the work that you do and be thinking about, well, what can I automate? What should I automate? How can I be more efficient? How can I create some scale? What I need to do with a human is such a
Human
pathetic
in
human. I
human
know.
in yeah,
Is keeping the human in the loop, right? We've talked about that. So augmenting with it, and then what are the things that you really need to keep just like really 100% focus on the human. So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think when you look at the work that you're doing, you can create those use cases and then go practice on those. So,
Yeah. Yeah. For us, we kind of look at the human piece as the bookends and then
mm,
see where obviously we need those eyeballs and the checks and balances to interweave throughout. But without a doubt, you need a human at the start and you need a human at the end. And
yeah,
that allows for that accountability as well.
yeah,
Um,
there was I think in the same report by McKinsey, I think they said that like 1 in 4 leaders um, expect that AI agents would act as autonomous teammates to the employees in the short term.
mm.
So, the human's always going to be important in the equation for most of the time.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest takeaway with AI tools and as we integrate them into our day-to-day workflows and the processes, it certainly is the execution piece, right? So the execution piece is expedited, but the judgment, taste, orchestration, that's the area that AI will never really have a handle on, and that's where I feel confident that the world will actually grow and become more interesting place as opposed to AI taking over in those, a year ago, 2 years ago. Like, what does this mean for us?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So how do we actually start this? How do we actually make some of these takeaways tangible and implement?
I mean, the first thing is you've got to start using it, right? There's no better thing than starting to use it yourself and understand it. If there's someone on your team, work with willing, right? If there's someone that's passionate about it, how do you like involve them in it? Um, you know, look at the current roles that you have. We talked about this, not the titles, but the outcomes, right? And the activities and the outputs. Um, as a leader in your team, you probably know what's going well, what isn't going well, what's slow, what's fast. And is there an opportunity to use AI to speed up something? Um, and that goes to actually the third point, which is redesign a workflow around it this quarter. And don't feel like you have to boil the ocean, right? This is something like, even if you're picking one workflow, like start somewhere and think about that to make it easy. The one thing I would say is just to the point of AI governance, which I think people should be aware of, is you need AI governance to ensure ethical, transparent, and a compliant use of data. So, this is important, especially, I was looking for some insights around a big data set. You got to make sure, at least for me, I'm taking out the email addresses. I'm taking about the person identifiable information, the PII. right?
Right.
So, it's important to make sure that you're doing this within the constraints of the company. If you don't know what the governance is, talk to your talk to your legal department. But just make sure you're
Right.
doing the right thing. Obviously, there. So I just want to mention AI governance as well, and then obviously things are moving so fast. It feels overwhelming because every day there is a new piece of information or a new functionality that's available. So definitely like think about a cadence where you're reassessing the tools that you're using and thinking
Right.
about the skills as well. So I think those are all really important.
Yeah, yeah, I think those are great takeaways. I mean, the hygiene piece, that's I always think about hygiene because every we recommend at least once a quarter make sure you do your housekeeping. And certainly I would apply that sort of in the same cadence around these AI tools and as folks are getting more comfortable. It's certainly widely adopted now. So I think we're in that next step of sort of this exciting AI era. But intentionally rebuilding workflows, knowing that AI is going to be utilized and kind of calling that out and creating that process, I think is a really great way for a leader to start, putting some of this into action and seeing what's working and what's not and how it can be best utilized within your team. Awesome. So recap, the approach, is the most important. It's not about the tool. As we all know, that GPT and Claude they're all have their various strengths, and I think they'll probably be chasing each other, for a good while here. But it's the approach that's attention that's becoming the bottleneck. Where we just throwing AI in, and that's hence the AI slop, or can we actually look at those as accelerators to the work output? Structure around outcomes. We pivoted in the last year or two. We were not time tracking in the same way. We're really looking at, okay, what are we bringing to the table, and what does this mean, and what are our goals here, and how do we hit those? The judgment piece, the taste, the judgment, the editorial, is very important. I think folks are really looking at the content that they're getting from the point of view of, did AI create this? And it really takes that personalization out. So much so that we're actually all telling our tools to remove the M dashes and make it look less AI. It's almost, like that pendulum swinging back. Um, Automate, augment, and keep human piece. So I love the easy button. Being an American, I want the easy button. So if I can automate my whole life, I would. But at the end of this, I think the big takeaway is really the human piece is coming back stronger than ever, as it should. We are human beings. Let's keep it that way. Um, and then again, just start with one or two or even three that you feel comfortable with saying, okay, let's look at the creative here. Where do we want this tool to fit in? Maybe on your social, like just get those initial drafts, those types of pieces, and intentionally map that out. I think will really give folks that sort of extra confidence in how they utilize AI. That's it. Hit the end. Well, time check. Well, it's almost like we know what we're doing, Stephen. Any final thoughts as we're wrapping up here?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground. I think the main thing is start, identify some areas. Um, Always check the work. Always check the work, I would
Yep.
say. Quality control is paramount. More output doesn't necessarily mean better output, and certainly doesn't necessarily mean better results. And so you really need to always keep keep tight to the outcomes that you're driving. Am I driving pipeline, for example? How am I showing up in AEO, GEO, and SEO? Like, you know,
Right.
all of those pieces. So, I would definitely think about what your strategy is around AEO and GEO. If you're a marketer, I would definitely be thinking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a funny tagline, or I don't know if it's tagline, more so a campaign, but I saw this up in the more recent Black Hat security show, and it said, "My CEO spent the whole weekend vibe coding. Now what?" It's, I've I have been on the receiving end of that. And the now what is, now we got to go through all of this and actually look at, like, what is the right level of quality, and is this just slop? Um, so anyways, yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We do have a lot of folks that are interested in the recording as well as the presentation here, so we'll be sure to get that out. and reach out. We've got, all sorts of ways to lean in and hopefully make this easier for everyone.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, I think email addresses is there. So look forward to hearing from people and discussing continuing the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.